Hi everyone, Adrian from Audio Excellence, Canada, Vilip, Angus, and Alex. From now on, we'll call him Ellis. Hope you're all doing well. So as our New Year's resolution, we will now, going forward, give you our conclusions right at the beginning so you don't have to watch the whole thing, because some people have suggested that our videos are too long, we run into tangents, and so on and so forth. So this way you can just get the information right at the very beginning, and then if you have to leave, you go ahead. But if you don't want to watch the whole thing, but you can leave the video playing, it's good for the algorithm and it helps us make money with YouTube, and then we match it and donate it. So anyway, today we are reviewing a Canadian product.
Yes, so for those of you who have always commented the
That's
fact
right.
that we don't support our own, like, you know, the country we live
That's
in, we
right.
actually have a Canadian product,
Yes.
like a real Canadian product,
Yes.
not just some designed in Canada, manufactured,
Right.
you know, in the middle of the ocean or something like that. But
Anyway, it's a brand called Acora. The model is the SRB. S like Sam, R like Red, B like Bravo. It's a bookshelf speaker or mini monitor. $19,000 Canadian, $15,000 US. Stands they have two different versions of stands. The one we have is the metal / marble stand, and it's 3,000 Canadian or 2,500 US. Again, the guys will overlay all the text and so on, the spec details and so on later, but conclusions first. Vilip?
so, I mean, this is all unabridged. I certainly didn't consult with you to any degree.
We never talked about it.
We never talked about it. We did both comment about the speaker based on what we heard at the last TAF, which just happened a few months ago.
Toronto Audio Fest for the rest of
Yes.
you.
And it was super impressive. You have to understand this little small speaker was in this giant room, and
It's like an auditorium.
auditorium.
Yeah,
And everybody
huge
I
meeting
talked
room.
to was really impressed by it. It loved the way it sounded. I'm of a mix. My response is a bit mixed with this. I would still like to have a bit more time. I fiddled around with it a lot last night when I did the review. I was expecting it to be super fabulous, and for the most part it was. It's a really detailed, compelling listen. The speaker is ruthless. It's same level of detail as Wilson and any of those other premium brands. It doesn't have an aggressiveness to it, but it has an honesty that is, I pretty well believe, unparalleled at this price point. But it's a difficult speaker to kind of categorize. I actually had to move it a couple times and move out some things in the room, because the room interface is super, super important with this speaker. To get it exactly right is probably not going to be an easy thing. Eventually, it sort of settled into, as you can see, it settled into our zone of neutrality, the Wilson zone of neutrality, but I still don't think it's quite right. I do give it a thumbs up. There's a part about this speaker that is so amazing. It's got like a crystal clear.
Okay, just remember, we're supposed to give the summary now as opposed to
I like it, but I like it at various
We've already
different
lost
degrees.
like half of our viewers.
I'm sure. I care. I do care, but you know, you have to kind of put up with me.
Okay, so you like it. What don't you like?
Again, the setup is really, really, really important. We had the designer Val come here to do the setup, and then that's the way I had it set up originally, and it didn't seem right, so I pushed it back, and it improved. And we had speakers in the corners because normally we were just lazy.
Okay, I got to cut him off because he'll keep going.
I liked it. Okay.
I liked it. Sounds like I liked it more than he did. In fact, I loved it in many aspects. I do have reservations. It is a bookshelf. And despite the specification that says that it goes down to 43 kilohertz, I assume it's plus or minus 3 decibels. I didn't get that. It definitely sounded lean in the mid to upper bass. But what it did have was certainly very, very good. So that's the only aspect that I have a bit of hesitancy about. So that's the conclusion. So the rest of it, for those of you that have to leave, go ahead and leave. If you can, leave the video playing. It helps with the algorithm and the metrics. Okay, now let's go into a deep dive.
Oh, now you want me to deep
Yes.
dive into it.
Yes. Oh, wait, let me give you specs first.
Oh, yeah.
Two-way bass reflex, 5.5-inch sandwich paper cone, 1-inch beryllium dome tweeter, 8 ohms, 86.6 dB sensitivity, 43 to 35 kilohertz, 9-inch wide, 11-inch deep, and 13 inches high, or 22.86 centimeters wide, 27.94 centimeters deep, and 33.02 centimeters high. The speakers weigh 59 pounds each, or 26.82 kilograms. The stands that we have here are 43 pounds each, or 19.55 kilograms, and they are 27 inches high, the stand. The speakers are made of black granite, and according to Val, the chief designer, or the main designer, or the only designer, and founder and co-owner of the company, company again is called Acora, Acora. The reason why they use black granite is because black granite is the hardest and the densest of all the granites and stone. And interesting fact, Val's family are in the stone working business. Either they make products out of stone or whatever it is, and he's the second generation. But apparently he also has a company that's involved in computers as well. So Val is a bit of an entrepreneur and a huge music lover and audiophile. First time he came by the way, I played him that Italian song that we both like.
Yeah.
And I said, I have no idea what she's singing, and the recording's okay, but it always brings tears to my eyes. Do you understand what she's saying? He says, of course. And he started telling me what it was all about anyway. So, all right, go ahead with your lengthy stories.
2 years ago, Val showed up, actually called like about 1 million times, and then finally we said, okay, yeah, come. Because his company is actually around the corner from us. It's in Scarborough, we're in Markham, it's very close. 10-minute drive or whatever it is, 15-minute drive. And he shows up with these speakers, and he spent an entire day setting them up. And he says, I need to use a tube amp to drive it. And we had a 275 here, MC 275. And he set them up. And they weren't really set up differently from the way that these were eventually set up by him just recently. Anyways, they were set up. There's no toe in. The speaker's far out into the room. He's got these gigantic stands on them. This is the smaller version. There's actually a bigger stand. And he left them here. He said, okay, yeah, finally he was happy with it. And then we listened to it, and I thought, that's not very good. That's not very good. And nobody in the store was, so Shin, Jay, they both didn't like it. It was interesting. It did some things really well, but overall the musical presentation probably wasn't together enough for it to be enjoyable. Fast forward, Toronto Audio Fest back in October. There's this big giant room at the end of the hallway from where we're set up to help out with some sales at the show. I walk in there, and it's like an auditorium, right? And these little speakers are in the one end, and it's filling the entire space, and it was amazing. It was warm and inviting and articulate and dimensional. I mean, it was wow. I remember coming up. I left the room and I saw you, and I said to you, like, you got to go listen to this. This is like really different from the way it was when we had it at the store. So of course, fast forward, now they're here, and Val did come by again to set them up. And the first time we had them up and running, one of our clients, Tony, you know who you are. He sat down there and he said, wow, right? And then
the very first time, before we had them set up properly, he said he hated them. Yes. But that was because I set them up wrong.
So we originally set them up using the Wilson approach, which was wrong. which is, I mean, it's now closer to how we would normally set up speakers. But the first time we had them set up, Angus, you had them...
I had them towed in,
and it just didn't sound... It sounded murky. Val came in, he set them up correctly to his specifications, and that's when we got the wow again. And then we took them out of the room. We've probably maybe moved it back and forth a couple times, and then last night I set them up as per... Because I wrote down all the positionings, and it didn't sound right. It sounded very lean, like very, very lean. And we're using Macintosh, so the system is C12000. We're using an MCD 600. We're using the DAC from that. There's a Lumen U1 Mini streamer, and we're using MC 611s. So I spent a good hour trying to figure out how to get this thing to sound the way I liked it. And it came to mind that we actually wanted a speaker that sounded different from anything else that we had, including Magnepans, Wilsons, Sonus Fabers. And it did that, but did we like it, or did I like it? So I ended up shifting it around a little bit. I moved it a little bit further back from where I was sitting, closer to the front wall. I remember that Val told me that his own personal setup, his speakers are set up 18 inches. The back of his speaker to the front wall is about 18 inches because of the constraints of his room and his living environment. So these are now a little bit closer. Originally, I had them set up around 3 feet. That was the measurement. And now they're about 26 inches. I found that helped a lot. It really added a bit of weight to the mid bass, even though it's still on the lean side. But again, so when I started to deeply listen to the speaker, it's really immersive. There's a super amount of detail. Again, beryllium tweeter, right? So but it's not unrealistic. It's not more real than real. It's still a fairly smooth transition from woofer to tweeter, and you get tons and tons of information. Like, there's so much information there. It will brutalize in a cruel way anything that you listen to if it's not well recorded. Stuff that is well recorded, it makes the speaker sound like a totally different thing, because then you're into the middle of that piece of music you love so much, and you understand it. But when it's poorly recorded, it's like like nails on a blackboard, almost in a sense. So there's a bit of a duality to the speaker. And certainly when you play music that is really well done and that you know really well, you're going to be quite impressed with the presentation. And then you'll realize, again, as we want to do, like it's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 songs into whatever your playlist is, and you're lost in the middle of that playlist. So it can do that. But I did find that it is so sensitive to the way you place it in the room. You have to pay a lot of careful attention to it. It's definitely the interface, the room interface is a super, super important component of how this speaker works. I'm pretty sure that Val would verify the same thing. I actually want him to come back again and experiment a little bit with how to best place this speaker in the room. I'm pretty sure it's not even close to what the optimal setup is. I don't know how you found it, but that's what I heard.
So I didn't play with the setup. I had in fact thought that maybe the positioning was where Val had left it. I didn't give it any thoughts to it. I was just listening to it. So if you have watched our previous video, which is the Cayenne CS150, I went through a playlist of songs that I was using. And essentially I repeated the same playlist. So conclusion first. There were a lot of things I really loved about the speakers. So Vilip has enunciated a lot of them. The clarity, the information, the detail, transparency, all the kinds of stuff that audiophiles in particular love. You will hear this in spades. You're going to hear stuff that you never thought were in your recordings, even stuff that you've known and played many, many times. The speakers disappear completely. They have this superb image. And that's another thing. typically a bookshelf speaker, the image is as high as the speaker, or where the tweeter is, and I always have an issue with that. So in other words, no matter how beautiful the speaker is, when it comes to the illusion that you are listening to a person playing for you or singing for you, that illusion almost always gets broken because I'm listening to a short person, 36 inches off the ground, or less. With these speakers, I get height. I get the kind of height that the big Wilsons give me, even the Sabrinas give me. But these, I've never ever heard any small bookshelf speaker do, and without any time alignment adjustments and so on, they just throw this tall image. It's very, very engaging. Leading edge speed. It's like listening to electrostatic speakers, but with body. So if you've ever heard electrostatic speakers, the first thing that you'll notice is this clarity, this insane speed and transparency. Now, whether or not you happen to take to that or not is entirely personal. But imagine that kind of clarity and speed now with body. That's what these speakers do for me. In fact, both Vilip and I have mentioned that the tweeter is beryllium. I didn't know that it was a beryllium tweeter.
Well, I didn't know until you just mentioned it.
Right. So I never knew this. I only knew when I was on the website, typing down all the specs. So I didn't know it was a beryllium tweeter. And for the very first time, I can honestly say, this is the only beryllium tweeter in its execution that I wasn't bothered by. Every other beryllium tweeter that I've heard, whether or not I knew it was beryllium tweeter, always bothered me. This one doesn't. And kudos to Val for being able to execute it in such a way that it doesn't sound harsh, bright, biting, and so on, as long as the recording's pretty decent. So fantastic in all those areas. Voice is really good. The reservation I have is really a matter of physics. We may still be able to get more meaty mid and upper bass if we move the speakers further back, and of course we'll play with it a bit later. But as it stands now, it does sound in that range like a bookshelf mini monitor. It doesn't have quite the same kind of weight that I would like. It does go down. It's just that it doesn't have the same kind of conviction and weight and power and presence in the lower frequencies. But I hear detail in the mid bass that a lot of bookshelves don't give me.
So, because I never heard them, but I know you own a pair.
Yeah.
Do they remind you of Watts?
Yes. So ironically enough, when I was listening to these, a number of speakers came to mind in terms of what they were similar to, and I was trying to think, how do I sort of give an association so other people who might be able to get an idea of. Yes, so in many respects, they sound like the original Watt puppies that I had, without the puppies, the original Watts that I had. It has the same kind of clarity, speed, articulation, but the original Watts were not as refined as these, nor were they as detailed, nor were they as quite as fast. But in the same sense that the original Watts blew everybody away when they were first introduced, these did the same for me in terms of today's standards and what they can do as a mini monitor. Another example would be like what a Magico would do, if any of you have heard Magico, without being the sterile, colder presentation.
It's a cool speaker, but it's not
cold.
Extremely analytical. No. It's just very neutral.
Yeah.
So what you feed into it is kind of what you get out of it. I talked to Val about his design and some of the choices he made, and he said there's no dip in it. There's no upper mid-range dip, which gives a little bit of forgiveness. Even I think the current generation of Wilson does that. It's a little bit more forgiving. This is just, that's why I say it's kind of like a cruel way.
It's a double-edged sword.
It is a double-edged sword. It gives you all of this, but because it gives you these things, it does this stuff that is perhaps not something you ever hear in a speaker, that you would normally gravitate towards.
Yeah, so in other words, if you enjoy Bananarama like he does.
It was awful on this. Oh,
right?
My God, it was terrible.
And thank God, because that kind of music should never have been made to begin with.
I listened to, what's his name? The guy with the deep gravelly,
Rick Astley?
Yes. It was awful. Oh, awful.
Thank God again. That kind of music should never have been made and should never have been played. But if you listen to any decent recordings and better, these will astound you. And if you play slightly better than average stuff, it will amaze you, because you will hear stuff and enjoy stuff that you didn't think that you would. So my additional thought was, boy, would I buy these speakers? If I had a difficult room with floor standing speakers and so on, and especially where it came to bass resonance and so on, I would buy these speakers in a heartbeat, and then judiciously add fast enough subwoofers in parts of the room where it would not provoke bass resonant issues. So add like a Sonus Faber Gravis 3 or an equivalent REL sub. I would, all day long, I would consider that. It's for me, yeah, absolutely, I would consider that. Yeah.
Yeah, so when I first heard these, I was thinking, what kind of price can I get from Val for my own personal pair? But then I was thinking, the thing weighs 60 pounds. Am I going to be able to carry this thing around with me? And what kind of stands would I need to support it? Because I don't want to buy like super expensive stands, but then you probably need to.
You don't have space in your place.
You could put them on my equipment shelf.
Put it on his computer.
They would make great computer speakers. Come on, think about it.
Your table would collapse.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, so for sure, for me, it's a 2 thumbs up with a small reservation, and the reservation is strictly in terms of the physics of it. It's just the mid and low bass is a bit lean. Otherwise, absolutely.
Basically, what you need to do is get up to the next level. They have a floor stander called...
Two floor standers.
Well, there's 2 of them, but the less expensive one's called the...
SRC1.
SRC1,
yeah.
Which is similar driver arrangement, 2 drivers. And it actually addresses some of the issues that this speaker might point out to you in terms of the way it works within a room. And then there's a bigger one, which is in the same cabinet, but it's got an additional driver.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll do a review.
Oh, we will, for sure. So coming back to the beginning of this video where Vilip introduced the fact that this is the first Canadian product that we can say we actually have and represent. So let's talk about why we don't represent. This is a tangent. Do we have time? What time?
Sure.
We've got 7 minutes.
7 minutes. Okay, very quickly. So for years, I've actually tried very hard to represent Canadian products, in particular speakers. So in the early days of audio excellence, we were in fact a PSB speaker dealer, and then of course we were also a Mirage dealer and so on. The issues for me were always that while they were good, they never seemed to pull on my heartstrings. They didn't do anything wrong. They just didn't do anything that really make me want to buy them personally, or they didn't excel in any particular way. They were just overall very, very good. And nothing wrong with that. And certainly in the price range like PSB, it's hard to do better than PSB as an all-in-one good quality speaker. But then I would listen to an equivalent price Vandersteen, and I would prefer the Vandersteen. And you could hear that maybe the Vandersteens were not quite as full sounding, maybe, and so on. But somehow they did some things better. So that was kind of the thing. Maybe there were sins of omission with other speakers that I preferred, but somehow the sins of omission, the overall end result, appealed more to me. The Mirage. At the time that we were in a Mirage dealer, some of you may remember, they were the hot speaker. Remember
the
that?
M1?
The M1s that Harry Pearson liked very much and Stereophile went crazy over and so on. These were the bipolar, not dipole,
yes,
bipolar speakers. Monoliths looking like the 2001. No, was it 2001?
Yeah,
that black obelisk.
So they would have a driver in the front going like this, at the same time a driver at the back. So they would do this,
yes.
Right?
And you would put the speakers like 5-6 feet from the wall, and they threw this ginormous deep sound stage, laid back, so on. And so if you never heard sound stage before, never heard depth before, this thing blew your mind. Except it wasn't dynamic. Now, it played loud, but it wasn't dynamic. In other words, at any given volume, the contrasts were like muted. It's almost as if somebody compressed the dynamics. It never went very loud and very soft. The contrasts just weren't there. But it threw this big, huge soundstage and sold gazillions of them. Mirage was a very successful company when that speaker came out, or that series came out. So we've tried. And after a while, I just stopped hearing any particular Canadian speakers overall that I felt really blown away by.
Did we ever sell Totem?
No. 5 minutes. Totem is one of those brands where I've heard at shows multiple times, and every time I hear them at shows playing their music, it's always been fascinating, right? They play their own playlist. Invariably, it's a small little speaker like these, and you're sitting there going, how is it possible that little speaker produces that much bass? And you're just in awe that it can do that. But then when we get the odd speaker traded in, overall, I'm still impressed by them, but you have to play those sonic spectaculars to really hear how great they are. So yeah, that's we may pursue Totem.
We have clients who have like Manitus, and we certainly have seen Model 1 signatures come through the store. And with very careful amplifier matching, those are spectacular speakers. Yeah, we
may pursue it. I can't tell you that we won't. But as far as that's the reason why we have never really had, recently anyway, Canadian speakers. And then Canadian electronics, that's another story altogether, perhaps for another time.
Bryston,
we're running short of time because we have to open the store. Anyway, so for me, 2 thumbs up with a slight reservation. Vilip.
Wow, yes.
1.5 thumbs up.
1.5 thumbs up, but really 2 thumbs up, but some, caveats which actually reduces it to 1.5 thumbs up.
Well, we'll get Val to maybe join us for one of the videos.
I really want to talk. There's way more about the speaker that we didn't even come close to, the way the crossover's done. The fact that there's no damping inside the speaker. There's a lot more details. Yeah, for sure. It's
we got to wrap because we have to open the store. So thank you for watching this whole thing, if you did. And again, remember to give us thumbs up, like the video, subscribe, turn on notification, all those things. And we'll see you again. Oh, by the way, we got lots of very interesting and exciting videos coming for you. So we'll see you again soon. Adrian from Audio Excellence Canada, Vilip, Angus, and Alex, also known as Alice. Take care. Bye-bye.
Alice in Wonderland, that is.